Welcome back to the 4 Misconceptions video series, and here's misconception number 3. One type of after-school activity is just as good as another as long as it's benefiting my child in some way. Well, I've heard this one from quite a few parents, but I've got to say, in my experience, it's simply not true. Well, sure, you want your child to benefit from their activities, but there are actually 4 mandatory ingredients that you should look for in any after-school activity that you allow your child to be involved in. And here are these mandatory ingredients. Number 1 is education. Number 2 is entertainment. Number 3 is exercise. And number 4 is empowerment. So the first mandatory ingredient you should look for is education. And what this really means is that there should be some visible positive impact on your child's ability to learn, to develop better study habits, and to improve their confidence in handling difficult subjects. Many children struggle academically, regardless of their academic ability or their intelligence, but unfortunately, this leads some parents to believe that the only way to improve their child's failing grades is with extra help, ranging from hiring a tutor for a few dollars to expensive brand-name franchised companies who often charge parents upwards of $10,000 for a course that will supposedly, hopefully, give their child an academic edge. While I'll be the first to agree that these options all have their place and that many children receive benefit from these programs, there are other more effective, fun, and wholesome alternatives that don't make a child feel like there's something so wrong with them that it requires a drastic fix costing thousands of dollars up front. So instead what you should do is look for an activity which you feel will improve your child's ability to focus and pay attention, while at the same time building their discipline and creating good habits. The second mandatory ingredient that an after-school activity should have is entertainment. Amazingly, many parents use this criteria as their main reason to choose an activity for their children. As long as their children like it, the parents stick with it, but the second their son or daughter says, "I don't want to go anymore," bam, just like that, the activity's canceled and it's on to the next fun thing. Now, my heart goes out to these parents when their children become teenagers looking for the next thrill, having been raised on fun as their number one value in life, or grown children still living at home because they just haven't figured out what to do with their life yet. I can hear it now. "Mom, I know I'm 30, but nothing's really that appealing to me. Nothing's fun enough. I promise I'll get my own place once I find a job that's fun enough for me. But right now, do you have any cash?" Now, don't get me wrong. Fun is important. In fact, it's absolutely necessary for a child's complete emotional and mental development. Even for us adults, life can get pretty boring. It can be mundane, repetitive, downright weary without something joyous or exciting to look forward to. All I'm saying is that having fun as the number one requirement or the only requirement for choosing an activity, that can lead to trouble down the road. So now we come to the third mandatory ingredient that you should look for in any after-school activity. What we're talking about here is good old-fashioned exercise. Now, there are literally thousands of books that have been written about the importance of children's fitness. In fact, it's the lack of exercise which has been named as a leading cause of everything from childhood obesity to depression, even teenage suicide, from the increasing dependence of drugs to change children's behavior, to a nationwide decrease in academic performance. The bottom line is that kids need and like exercise when it also combines fun and learning. Now, I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, every time my siblings and I got a little too rambunctious, all my mom would say is, "Go outside, go ride your bike around the block, go for a walk to the store," or something else that would make us burn off that energy. But you know, these days, a parent in a major metropolitan area is likely to have someone call the police on them if they were to tell their child just to go ride their bike to the store, assuming that that parent were ignorant enough to take such a risk with their child's safety in the first place. So exercise for kids today is a little bit harder to arrange. Now, of course, there are the usual things like organized sports, and I use that term a little bit loosely, or the kids club at the gym. Now, you can get DVDs for children's fitness too, And of course, the big push is video games that make you move. And that's definitely better than nothing, especially if the whole family gets involved. But let me ask you this. If you give most boys the choice between A, running on a wobbly little plastic platform until they start to sweat enough to actually benefit from the exercise, or B, they can sit on the couch with a soda and press buttons to make things on the TV blow up while they watch their online character shoot everything in sight. I mean, realistically, which choice is it going to be? And for girls, it's not much better. It's actually worse with so much image advertising out there in TV, movies, and even in video games. Well, these can create an incredibly harmful set of false expectations about beauty and about self-image. Girls today have an impossible set of standards that they have to compare themselves to, and that's why having a scheduled after-school activity that includes exercise is an absolute must-have for a happy, healthy child. So now we come to the fourth mandatory ingredient that you should look for. And what we're talking about here is empowerment. Now let's face it, the world is a very different place than you or I grew up in. There are things that our children see on the news, hear from their friends, and are just exposed to in general as part of life in this day and age. Now, short of packing it all up and heading for the countryside, there are only 3 options available for any parent who wants for their children to be informed, but also to grow up happy, healthy, confident, and able to succeed. Now, I don't mean to be dramatic, but if you've listened this far, I can only assume that you are sincerely interested in getting every advantage that you can for your child. So here goes. One option that you have as a parent to protect your child is to shield them from the harsh realities of life and postpone their exposure to such things as drug use, drunk driving, bullying, sexual activity, sexual disease, sexual abuse, teenage pregnancy, worrying about the environment, terrorism, war, viruses, economic crisis. You know, just hearing this list is enough to make some parents want to pull the covers over their heads. And I'm sure that most parents would agree that ignoring these topics is a poor way to raise a child. But come on, just how easy is it really to talk about these things? It's not exactly dinner time conversation. So a lot of parents wait until the time is just right to talk with their children about sensitive subjects. Unfortunately, what ends up happening is that their children learn about such things from their friends, the internet, and the media. Not exactly quality sources, if you ask me. Now, the second way that you can talk to your children is to tell them that yes, those bad things do happen, but they happen to other people who don't follow the rules, who don't do their homework, who don't go to church, who don't eat their vegetables, who don't listen to their parents. You know, I actually heard a mom say that last one to her young son who asked if there was really such a thing as kidnapping. Now, obviously, we don't endorse or approve of this style of parenting. So the third way that you can approach these topics is to empower your child. Now, I know that the word empowerment means different things to different people, so I'll just share my definition here. Empowerment means being in touch with one's own personal power. It's the belief in your own capability to accomplish what you set out to do. Being empowered means having the confidence to take action, to learn from your mistakes, and to develop into a leader, not a follower. Empowerment also means making better choices based on common good, not selfish ends alone. Children who have a direct personal experience of setting and reaching goals are naturally more confident, well-adjusted, and empowered. In fact, children are usually more empowered than adults because they have less so-called failure experiences. However, without a conscious effort on the part of a child's caretakers, this natural confidence inevitably fades into self-conscious behavior and concerns about failing. So empowerment is not something that's going to happen by itself. An empowered child stays that way because they learn to set and achieve meaningful goals that are supported by the role models and authority figures in their lives. What this means is that when you're choosing an activity for your child, empowerment is a vitally important ingredient. I mean, if you really think about it, it's almost negligent to ignore the most important developmental stage of a person's life, the ages between 4 and 12 years old, where the majority of a person's self-concept, their identity, and their sense of self-esteem is formed. Confidence is not developed by accident. And if I can share nothing else during this conversation, I hope you'll take away from this a reminder of how important you are in building your child's confidence, building their self-esteem, and their sense of value in the world. So these then are the 4 mandatory ingredients that must be considered in any after-school activity that you involve your child in. Thank you, and we'll look forward to talking to you on the next video.